changing the subject or rearranging. The key to this is being able to undo any equation that you get to be able to isolate a certain variable. And it is reasonably straightforward until you start getting some nasty ones. So what I'm going to do is start simply and build up to some harder examples. So for example 1, y equals 4x plus 3, I want to rearrange this or change the subject to make x the subject of the equation. So I want x equals something at the end. And in order to do that, I need to think about how this equation is made up. Well, x is being multiplied by 4 and then it's having 3 added to it. So to undo that, I need to use the opposite or inverse operations to be able to rearrange. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of this positive 3, because at the end I want x on its own. So to get rid of a positive 3, I have to take away 3. What I do to the left, I have to do to the right, otherwise the equals sign is pointless. So I end up with y minus 3 equals 4x. I don't want 4x's, I want 1x. So to get rid of 4 times x, I have to do the opposite of timesing, which is dividing. So I'm going to divide by 4. And I end up with y minus 3 all over 4. Be careful there, don't just divide one part of this by 4, both bits, equals x. So our rearranged equation is x equals y minus 3 over 4. Nice and straightforward. Okay, another example, a little bit harder, not too bad though. Number 2, y equals 2 minus 5x. And I want to make x the subject again. Now remember that we want an x at the end, we don't want a minus x at the end. So in order to make this easier, straight away, let's make that 5x positive, because at the moment it's negative. So I'm going to start by adding 5x to both sides. So we end up with y plus 5x equals 2. Now I can get rid of the y on this side, so I end up with just an amount of x's on the left, on the right, left. God, wake up. Minus y, 5x equals 2 minus y. And finally, like the last example, I'm going to divide everything by 5. Let's get x on its own. Divide 5. X equals 2 minus y all over 5. So that's example 2, just to show you one where the x is negative. So we need to get rid of that first. Okay, another example. This time we're going to have some squares involved. So example 3, x squared plus y squared equals w squared. Now this time I still want to make x the subject, but I have 3 variables, don't let that worry you, and I also have a squared. So start off by getting just x's on one side. So I'm going to take away y squared from both sides. So I get x squared equals w squared minus y squared. Now I don't want x squared, I want x, so I have to do the opposite of squaring, which is going to be square rooting. Be very careful now, when we square root, you get 2 solutions, not 1. So x is going to be equal to plus or minus the square root of w squared minus y squared. Now be very careful also, you can't just take the squares off both sides, because that wouldn't be right. If you think about squaring 2 variables, when we use the grid method we end up with 4 parts to that. So square rooting, you can't just knock off the squares. Okay, so that's the solution to that one. Another one. A few more parts in this one. I've got t equals 1/4 root 5a over h. And I want to make a the subject. Now I've got 2 ways of starting this. I can start by squaring everything to get rid of the square root. But if I do that, I also have to square this quarter, so things might start getting a little bit sticky. So I think I'm going to choose instead to times everything by 4 first to get rid of this fraction, so that will disappear completely. So multiply both sides by 4. 40 on the left. 4 lots of a quarter is just 1, so that just goes, and I'm left with 5a over h. Now I think is the better time to square everything. So let's square both sides. And I end up with 4t squared equals 5a over h. Notice I haven't just squared the t, the 4 also needs to be squared. So let's rewrite this one as 16t squared. Bit long-winded. We still now need to isolate the a, so let's multiply by h. I'll go over here because I've run out of paper. So we get 16t squared h equals 5a, and finally divide everything by 5. 16t squared h over 5 equals a. Okay, lots of steps, none of them particularly difficult. It's all about working out the easiest way to get it done. Okay, finally we've got 2 more examples, and these are slightly different. They do come up quite a lot in GCSE, so do make sure you're able to do them. And that's when the subject that you're changing the equation into appears more than once. So example 1 of these is a minus xt equals b plus yt. And I want to make t the subject of the equation. But as you can see, it's appearing twice here. So the first step now is to get all the t's on one side of the equation. So let's get the t's over on this side, might be easiest, get them all positive. So I'm going to add xt to both sides to get this one over here. So a equals b plus yt plus xt. Okay, got the t's here, but I've also got a b. Let's get rid of that so that we've just got t's on one side. So minus b from both sides. Okay. Now we've just got t terms here, but I want t on its own. It appears twice, and it's attached to y's and x's, which we want to try and get rid of somehow. So this is where the trick occurs. We need to factorise this side. So take out the common factor, which is t. Now we've got t multiplied by something, so we can divide both sides by this to get t on its own. So I'm going to divide both sides by y plus x to get a minus b over y plus x equals t. So remember, if you have the subject appearing twice, you have to at some point factorise. One more quick example then. T minus w equals wa over 2b. I want to make w the subject. So we need to get the w terms all on one side of the equation. So the first thing to do, get rid of this horrible fraction, multiply both sides by 2b. 2b t minus w equals wa. I need to expand this bracket out. 2bt minus 2bw equals wa. And now I want to get all the w's on one side, so I'm going to add 2bw to both sides. Okay, bit of a faff, bit long-winded, but it's the only way to get this right. Now, all my w's are on one side, but again, they're attached to things that we don't want, so we're going to have to factorise at this point. So 2bt equals w lots of a plus 2b. Pull out w as a common factor. And now we can divide both sides by everything in this bracket to get w on its own. So we're dividing by a plus 2b to get 2bt over a plus 2b equals w. And that's your answer. Okay, good luck with your questions.